In 1991, Freddie Mercury held a secret that stunned the world. The legendary Queen frontman was battling a deadly illness, but kept it hidden from fans for years. Though his body grew frail, his voice remained as powerful as ever. To mask his declining health, he filmed his last music video entirely in black and white. In his final days, Freddie stopped all treatments except painkillers. Just 24 hours after publicly revealing his condition, he passed away. Today, we uncover the untold story of Freddie Mercury's last moments. Born Farik Bulsara on September 5, 1946, in Stone Town, Zanzibar, Freddie's roots traced back to India. His parents, Bomi and Jur, were Parsis from the small city of Bulsar, now called Valsad. The family practiced Zoroastrianism, an ancient Persian faith. From birth, Freddie was unique. He had 4 extra teeth. He believed those teeth gave him his signature powerful voice, able to stretch from deep bass to soaring soprano. Born under British rule in Zanzibar, he was a British subject, a detail that would later open doors to a new life. When Freddie was 6, his sister Kashmira arrived. Years later, in 1969, he officially became a British citizen. His early childhood in Zanzibar was calm and privileged. His father worked as a cashier for the British Colonial Office at the High Court, giving the family a comfortable lifestyle many didn't enjoy. Freddie's schooling began at a missionary school run by Anglican nuns, where he received a traditional British education. But everything changed in 1964, when a violent revolution swept through Zanzibar. Thousands of Arabs and South Asians were killed. The Bulsaras had to flee, leaving everything behind to escape to England. Freddie was just 17. It was a harsh transition, from island paradise to the cold, grey suburbs of England. Life as he knew it was gone. But his true journey had already begun years before. At 8 years old, Freddie was sent to St. Peter's School, a strict British-style boarding school nestled in the hills outside Mumbai. The rules were rigid: uniforms, discipline, proper English. Yet something extraordinary happened there. The headmaster noticed Freddie's talent and convinced his parents to pay for piano lessons. That decision changed everything. Freddie wasn't just good, he was gifted. He excelled in sports, drama, art, and piano. Quiet but never invisible, kids nicknamed him Bucky because of his teeth, but he took it in stride. By 12, he won the school's Best All-Rounder award. Freddie was a natural performer, shining at every opportunity. In 1963, he returned to Zanzibar, buzzing with new ideas and confidence. But long before that, he'd already felt the thrill of the stage. At St. Peter's, he joined a band called the Hecttics at just 12 years old. Alongside Bruce, Derek, Farang, and Victory, Freddie played piano and sang covers of Elvis, Cliff Richard, and Little Richard. His talent was shocking. He could replicate songs just by hearing them once. His fingers danced across the keys effortlessly. At school events, the band caused a stir, kids cheered, danced, and clapped. This was Freddie's first taste of stardom. His musical style wasn't shaped by rock alone. He also adored Bollywood legends like Lata Mangeshkar and Kishore Kumar, whose emotional singing inspired Queen's dramatic sound. By the time he left St. Peter's, Freddie had passed his grade 4 piano exams. Then came 1964, the year Freddie's world crumbled. Zanzibar erupted in violence, with thousands killed in targeted attacks against people like him, the Parsi Indian community. Forced to flee, the Bulsaras escaped to England with only what they could carry, leaving behind sunshine, friends, and all that was familiar. Their new home was Feltham, a dull suburb far from the vibrant life Freddie once knew. The grey houses and skies felt like exile. But in that quiet, something inside Freddie began to grow. He didn't just survive, he transformed. After finishing school, he attended Isleworth Polytechnic, then moved on to Ealing Art College. Ealing was no ordinary school. It was a sanctuary for rebels, artists, and misfits, a place where Freddie's true magic would begin. At Ealing Art College, Freddie found his tribe, people who refused to follow the rules. Though he studied graphic design, his mind was elsewhere, lost in music and bigger dreams. It was there he met Tim Staffel. They clicked instantly, both driven by music and restless creativity. Freddie even helped produce an underground magazine that poked fun at the very design world he was supposed to join. But Freddie wanted more. Outside the classroom, he was captivated by Jimi Hendrix. The first time he heard him, something inside lit up. Freddie didn't just listen, he sketched Hendrix, followed his performances, and studied every move. He didn't want to just sing, he wanted to command the stage with that kind of power. That obsession led him to join a band called Ibex. They weren't famous, just a group playing pubs and sharing cramped flats, but Freddie was thrilled. Here, he could experiment, fail, and try again. His ears were wide open, soaking in everything from Aretha Franklin's soulful voice to John Lennon's poetic lyrics. He adored the Beatles' harmonies and the wild spirit of Elvis Presley. His musical style was a swirling mix of soul, rock, and glam. At the same time, Freddie worked selling clothes at Kensington Market with Roger Taylor. It wasn't just a job, it was a crash course in style. He learned what caught the eye, how to turn heads, and slowly began to stand out, not as Farrick, but as Freddie. At 22, fresh out of art school, Freddie was unsure of his future. But in August 1969, everything changed. He met a little-known Liverpool band called Ibex. They'd played only a handful of gigs, but Freddie saw potential, and they saw something magnetic in him. In just 10 days, he learned all their songs, added a few originals, and traveled with them to Bolton. There, he performed on stage for the first time at the Octagon Theatre. The audience didn't realize it yet, but a star was being born. Freddie didn't just sing, he moved, dazzled, and owned the spotlight. The band had never experienced anything like it. One member later said, "We used to just play music and not think about the show." Freddie changed everything. Despite having only one pair of trousers and a single shirt, Freddie walked with the swagger of a true rock star. By October, he convinced the band to change their name. Ibex became Wreckage. Their sound shifted, too. Freddie began writing songs, collaborating with guitarist Mike Burson. Together, they created tracks like Vagabond, Outcast, and FEWA. They even recorded Green in Freddie's London flat, an early glimpse of his future legacy. But Wreckage didn't last. The band split, and Freddie moved on to another short-lived project called Sour Milk Sea. Still, he remained undeterred. He was thinking bigger. "We're not going to make it playing all this three-chord blues crap," he told his bandmates. "We have to write our own songs." Then came a twist no one saw coming. On March 29, 1970, Tim Staffel quit his band Smile, which included Brian May and Roger Taylor. Tim and Freddie had been friends since art college in 1965. When Tim left, Freddie didn't hesitate. He stepped in. It felt like destiny. Smile had talent, but Freddie brought something magnetic: voice, vision, and confidence. Even before joining, he'd attend their gigs and suggest ways to improve. Brian and Roger weren't sure at first. Roger later said, "He was just my crazy mate, not a singer, just someone who was always up for fun." But that changed fast. Freddie had been waiting for this moment. Once inside, there was no turning back. He pushed the band toward drama, bold stage presence, and outrageous costumes. He wanted them to be larger than life. Then, he suggested a new name, Queen. It sounded grand, royal, and a little provocative. Brian and Roger hesitated, thinking it might be too much. But Freddie stood his ground. He said it was perfect, universal, strong, unforgettable. Around the same time, he reinvented himself as Freddie Mercury. This wasn't just a new band. It was a complete transformation. But they weren't complete yet. They needed a bassist, and finding the right one wasn't easy. They tried a few, but no one clicked. Then, in 1971, they met John Deacon. Quiet and unassuming at 19, John was a student who arrived at rehearsal with his bass and a custom-built amp. That amp would help define Queen's iconic sound. John played smoothly, stayed humble, and didn't compete for attention. The band liked that. They brought him in, and Queen was finally whole. Freddie's influence went beyond the music. He designed the band's logo using his art school skills. The crest featured lions, a crab, and fairies, all based on the members' zodiac signs. The lions represented Roger and John, the crab was for Brian, and the fairies for Freddie. Wrapped around a giant letter Q with a crown in the center and a phoenix soaring above, the logo looked regal, fitting for a band destined to rule the stage. But Queen's debut album wasn't an instant success. Recorded at Trident Studios, where legends like the Beatles had worked, they had to settle for late-night sessions during off hours. They waited around, recording until dawn, exhausted but determined. Months passed, and when the album finally dropped in July 1973, the reviews were mixed. Some understood their vision, most did not. But Queen didn't care. They knew they were building something timeless. By 1974, Queen was still finding its identity. Earlier albums showed talent but felt scattered, too complex, too long, trying too hard to be something else. Everything changed with sheer heart attack. This was the moment Freddie stopped experimenting and truly owned his sound. He tightened the songs, injected drama and glamour, and made each track feel grand, even when only 3 minutes long. Then came Killer Queen. Suddenly, Queen was no longer just another band, they were the band. The song exploded in the UK and crossed over to America. Queen had finally broken through. But behind the scenes, things were far from glamorous. The band was broke. Their label, Trident Studios, kept most of the money, paying the band like part-timers. They had hits but couldn't afford decent housing. Freddie lived in a damp flat, and John Deacon couldn't get a loan for a home. Frustrated, the band fought back. After months of legal battles, they broke free, but at a steep cost. They had to pay out hundreds of thousands and give up royalties on future albums. The timing was risky. Just as they won their freedom, they decided to make their most expensive album yet. A Night at the Opera wasn't just another record, it was a gamble to save their career. They used 7 studios, burned through more money than any British band had before, and bet everything on its success. It had to work, or they were done. The pressure was crushing, but it forced them to aim higher. Freddie, always the boldest, brought in a 6-minute epic called Bohemian Rhapsody. At first, no one knew what to make of it. No chorus, operatic madness, a puzzle for the radio. Who'd play that? But Freddie wasn't asking, he was commanding. He shot a low-budget but striking video in just one day, dropped the song, and shattered all the rules of pop music. It stayed #1 for 9 weeks. Something totally new, and it worked. Freddie didn't just change music with Bohemian Rhapsody. He changed himself. On stage, he transformed. He wasn't just singing, he was commanding, strutting, performing like a man possessed. His voice hit wild highs and soul-wrenching lows. In front of 20,000 people, he made each one feel like the song was just for them. That broken mic stand he snapped. He turned it into a prop, a weapon, a signature move. By the time Queen performed Bohemian Rhapsody live, it wasn't a concert, it was a spectacle. Then came 1977 at Bingley Hall. After Queen finished, the crowd suddenly burst into You'll Never Walk Alone, unplanned, raw, emotional. Freddie watched, amazed. He turned to Brian May and said, "We need songs like this." That night birthed We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions, 2 of the greatest stadium anthems ever. Mercury wasn't just performing anymore. He was creating anthems for crowds to scream back at him, and scream they did, every night. By 1980, with another One Bites the Dust, Freddie pushed Queen far beyond glam rock. The track was funky, edgy, unexpected. Many thought Queen couldn't pull it off. They did. It became their biggest hit in the US. Mercury never stayed in one lane. He kept moving, evolving, reinventing. That's why his music reached new people, again and again. No one could pin him down. With success came indulgence. Mercury wasn't one for saving money. If he liked something, he bought it. His sister needed a kitchen. She got a new kitchen. If a jewelry store was closed, he'd have it open just for him. His Ibiza birthday party, pure madness. 700 guests, a giant cake modeled after Gaudi's cathedral, and hundreds of broken glasses by the end. Freddie didn't just live large. He lived louder than anyone else. But not all his choices were golden. In 1984, Queen played Sun City, South Africa, right in the heart of apartheid. It was legal but deeply controversial. Cultural boycotts were in place. Most artists refused to go. Queen went anyway. They said it wasn't political, but others saw it differently. The backlash was brutal. They were fined, blacklisted, and called out in protest songs. Years later, even the band admitted it might have been a mistake. They claimed it wasn't for money, but the damage was done. Freddie was always chasing something new. In 1980, that chase led Queen to Flash Gordon, a soundtrack, not a full rock album. Only a few songs had lyrics. Brian May took the lead, diving into synthesizers, new territory for the band. Fans were divided, some loved the music more than the movie, others didn't get it at all. That strange project hinted at bigger changes. Queen was shifting, and not everyone was on board. 2 years later, Hot Space took that shift even further. Disco, funk, synths. Not the Queen fans remembered. John Deacon and Freddie loved it. Brian May and Roger Taylor didn't. Tensions ran high. Long nights in Munich turned into bitter fights. They drank too much. Brian said they were emotionally wrecked. Roger blamed Freddie's manager, Paul Prenter, for pushing the band toward gay club music. To some, it wasn't just a bad album. It felt like betrayal, but while some fans turned away, others were listening. Michael Jackson took notes. Musicians paid attention. Hot Space flopped, but its fingerprints showed up everywhere later. Amid this chaos, something magical happened. Queen met David Bowie in a Swiss studio. What began as a jam session became under pressure. That bass line, pure John Deacon. The energy, pure Clash. Freddie and Bowie fought constantly, but that friction made the song unforgettable. It shot to #1, and proved one thing: Queen could still surprise, even while falling apart behind the scenes. By 1983, they needed a break. Not just tired, burned out. Years of recording, touring, and arguing had taken their toll. For the first time since they started, Queen hit pause. The break gave them space to breathe, but it didn't heal the cracks. The band was split in two. Freddie and John Deacon wanted more dance beats. Brian May and Roger Taylor clung to their rock roots. Freddie's loyalty to his manager Paul Prenter only deepened the divide. Still, the silence gave them space to remember who they were, and what they could become. Then came the works in 1984. The reset they desperately needed. Freddie brought his flair. Deacon added rhythm. Brian and Roger finally got the guitars back. The sound was balanced, rock and pop, side by side. Radio Gaga exploded. I Want to Break Free became an anthem. Queen was back. They stayed on the charts for nearly 2 years. And this time, the world noticed, except America. The I Want to Break Free video, with the band in drag, was a hit in the UK, but MTV banned it. Fans turned away. In Rio, when Freddie wore the costume live, the crowd threw things at him. It was brutal. Queen never fully recovered their US momentum after that. But Freddie didn't stop. He had more to prove. In 1985, he released Mr. Bad Guy, his solo album. Pure Freddie, no compromises, all him. He dedicated it to his cats, filling it with dance beats, ballads, and cheeky fun. Some fans loved it, others didn't. The US barely noticed. But for Freddie, it wasn't about sales. It was about freedom. Years trapped in the Queen machine, he was finally doing it his way. And then came the surprise no one saw coming. He teamed up with opera legend Montserrat Caballé, one of his heroes. He convinced her to say yes. They met in a Barcelona hotel. Freddie sang her parts in falsetto. She was stunned. Together, they recorded Barcelona Magic, mixing opera and rock like never before. When the 1992 Olympics chose Barcelona as an anthem, the song soared. They made a full album together, bold, strange, beautiful. Just like Freddie, he knew time was running out, but he didn't stop. In early 1988, months after his HIV diagnosis, he walked into the studio with Queen and started recording again. He told no one, didn't want sympathy, just wanted to sing. The result, The Miracle, an album not of farewell, but triumph. It hit #1 across Europe. People didn't realize yet, it was a miracle in more ways than one. Then came Innuendo. By then, Freddie was weaker, but his voice hadn't lost an ounce of power. Brian May said Freddie begged him to keep writing. He didn't care how sick he was. He just wanted to keep going. He told them, finish it after I'm gone. But while I'm here, I give you everything. The title track hit #1, bold, haunting, brilliant. Just like him. But in public, the truth was harder to hide. On February 18, 1990, Freddie stepped onto the Brit Awards stage to accept Queen's Lifetime Achievement Award. He said just 5 words, thank you, good night. His silence spoke louder than any speech. He looked thin, tired, and the rumors swirling for years suddenly felt real. But even then, he smiled. He waved. He didn't want anyone to see his pain, not even his fans. His bandmates said they never talked about his illness. It was unspoken. If Freddie didn't say it, they didn't ask. Back in the studio, Freddie kept recording. Some days he could barely stand. Some days he could only sing for an hour or two. But he showed up anyway. Engineers said it wasn't a sad place, it was full of laughter. Freddie kept things light. Even when his body was failing, he refused to let darkness win. When asked if he could handle vocals for The Show Must Go On, he didn't hesitate. He said, I'll fucking do it, darling. Then downed a glass of vodka and nailed it in one take. That performance became one of the most powerful moments of his career. In May 1991, he filmed his last music video, These Are the Days of Our Lives. You wouldn't know it was goodbye unless you looked closely. Shot in black and white to hide how sick he really was. He wore a vest covered in drawings of his cats. He smiled, joked, and did take after take until he was satisfied. At the end, he looked straight into the camera and whispered, "I still love you." His final message. He knew what was coming and made sure the world knew he loved them, right to the end. A few months later, November 1991, he made a final choice. No more medication, just painkillers. He was ready. He wanted peace. Friends stayed by his side around the clock. He couldn't paint anymore. He couldn't see well, but he still laughed. He still shared memories. On November 22nd, he told Queen's manager to release a statement confirming he had AIDS. At 8 p.m., the news broke. And at that moment, Freddie Mercury, lying in bed, smiled. His assistant said it was the most relaxed he'd been in years. The secret was out. The fight was nearly over. Less than 24 hours later, on November 24, 1991, at exactly 6:48 p.m., Freddie Mercury died. He was 45. The world lost a voice, a legend, and the first rock star to openly die of AIDS at a time when even the word made people uncomfortable. His death forced the conversation into the spotlight. It couldn't be ignored anymore. But even in death, Freddie left a mystery no concert could answer. Everyone knew he was cremated at Kensal Green Cemetery in West London. What no one knew, his ashes remained unclaimed for over a year. It was Mary Austin, his closest friend and former lover, who finally took them. And she never said where they went. In 2013, fans found a small plaque hidden in the cemetery. It bore his real name, birth and death dates, and a message in French, signed only with an M. But it soon vanished, likely removed to keep the secret safe.